Hello and welcome to this episode of Threads Through London. Today we will be walking and riding along the route of the District Line, a subsurface railway line that first opened in 1868. From St James's Park Station, we'll be walking to our next stop at Westminster Station, where we will then follow this thread underground by train and overground by foot, alternating between each station to reach our final destination at Tower Hill. On the way, we will be passing by some of London's most famous landmarks, as well as diving deeper into the fascinating history of the city. So let's get started. This train is heading to our destination at Tower Hill, but we're starting our journey from St James's Park Station on foot. This station is mostly used by commuters during the week, and by savvy tourists on the weekend heading to Westminster's famous landmarks. Walking along the platforms, you'll see the old wooden kiosk on the westbound platform, and you can also spot the old station name on the roundels when they couldn't decide whether it was James' or James'. St James's Park Station opened in 1868 as part of the first section of the District Line to open between South Kensington and Westminster under the Metropolitan District Railway. This exit leads to what was once the London Underground headquarters, 55 Broadway, which was built in 1927-29 and was designed by Charles Holden. Transport for London moved out in 2020, so we wait to see what happens next with this building. There is a shopping mall here, but many shops are empty or not open at the weekends. Let's go take a look at the outside of what was once the tallest building in London. On the exterior, there are sculptures such as this one at street level, and you can see another one up at the 6th floor from here as well. As you walk around the building, you can see some more of its impressive angles, and as we walk away from it, more will be revealed. Heading back towards where we came from, we're going to go around the Ministry of Justice building and head up to Queen Anne's Gate. As we cross over Petty France, we can look down and see Westminster Abbey in the distance, which we'll be getting a bit closer to soon. When I'm walking around London, I'm always making sure to look down streets, as it may surprise you where some interesting or historic buildings are lurking. It's often how I find my routes for these walks, by getting distracted and being pulled in all directions. Ahead of us, there's a pathway that you can take into St James's Park, but we're going to turn to the right and follow Queen Anne's Gate. Looking back, we can see the layers of London starting to reveal themselves, with 55 Broadway, the Ministry of Justice, and the Georgian corner of Queen Anne's Gate. Queen Anne's Gate was developed from 1704 onwards, and there are many good examples of Georgian architecture remaining along this road. What initially drew my eye on this street were the elaborately carved wooden door cases, some of which are varnished wood and others are painted white. These are quite a rare feature, with many being original, and a fairly good facsimile can be seen at number 21. You really do feel like you've stepped back in time coming down this street, except for all of the modern cars. This street was originally divided in two, at the point where we find the statue of Queen Anne herself. The buildings here are protected by listing and as part of the Birdcage Walk conservation area. Due to the age and location of the street, there are many blue plaques naming the notable people who once lived here. So let's keep going. As we get back down to Broadway, which is now turned into Tothill Road, we can glance back and see 55 Broadway in all its glory. Turning away from it, we head towards some of the most recognisable buildings in Westminster. The route of the Underground runs pretty much under our feet here, as the District Line was built using the cut and cover method, where they would dig a large trench down into the ground, build up the walls and supports for the tunnel, and then cover it over with the street we walk on today. Now we get a bit closer to Westminster Abbey, where 40 monarchs have been crowned since 1066. The building has developed over the centuries, with this striking end of the West Towers designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor completed in 1745. As we head across Parliament Square, you can imagine the District Line running underneath it from one corner to the other, and they did have to dig up this square to build the railway. Parliament Square is a place of meeting and protest, so if you are going to follow this walk, you may want to check if there are any planned protests, as streets may be closed or busy. Around Parliament Square you can see statues of many notable people, including the first statue of a woman to be included on the square, which was erected in 2018, designed by Gillian Waring of suffragette Millicent Fawcett. And if you would like to follow this walk in real life, I will be sharing a detailed map with the route and points of interest for supporters of my Ko-fi page, which will be linked down below. Thank you so much for your support. And if you are going to follow this walk, it's completely free to walk the streets of London, however you will have to pay to use the tube. So please do check the TfL website for the current fare and daily cap charges. I'll also have some information down in the description for you to refer to. So let's keep walking. We're going to cross over on this corner just to avoid the crowds which gather at the other crossings. As we head towards our next station, you can see the famous Elizabeth Tower, which houses the bell called Big Ben, which is looming over our next station. There's quite a contrast between the architecture here, so it's a great spot for photos. At Westminster Station, the building above and the station below were designed by Michael Hopkins and Partners as part of the redevelopment of the site for the 1999 Jubilee Line extension. The original District Line station here was one of the original termini of the railway when it first opened in 1868 as Westminster Bridge Station. In 1922, Charles Holden designed a new entrance on Bridge Street, and the platforms were later extended in the 1960s. In order to enable the building of Portcullis House above and the Jubilee Line below, the District Line platforms had to be lowered incrementally by a total of 30 centimetres, so that the ticket hall could fit in. The grey steel speaks more of the Jubilee Line style, which we won't be covering in this video, but I do hope to be able to bring you a Jubilee Line walk soon. So we're going to catch the train to the next stop along, to Embankment Station. And now we've arrived to Embankment Station. This station was opened in 1870 and was constructed as part of the building of the Victoria Embankment. More on that in a bit. The station was originally called Charing Cross and was only renamed in 1974. The colourful art we can see on the platform walls was commissioned in 1985 by the abstract artist Robin Denny. You can see his signature on some of the enamel panels. When you interchange at this station to the Northern or Bakerloo line, the dominant colours change to represent the colours of those lines. For the District and Circle lines, it's green and yellow, brown for the Bakerloo, black for the Northern line, and the blue represents the river and the red the trains. So let's head back up to the street. The exterior of Embankment Station is from 1914, and here we can see the bridge above taking mainline trains into Charing Cross Station. We're going to turn the other way and head into Victoria Embankment Gardens. These gardens opened in 1875 and were designed by Alexander Mackenzie. They span the distance between the original bank of the river to the road which now forms part of the embankment designed by Joseph Bazalgette. Here we can see the York Watergate, which would have had the river lapping at its base and allowed boats to carry people to York House that would have been behind it here. It was designed by famed architect Inigo Jones and built in 1626. It now sits 150 metres from the river. As we walk through the gardens, it's interesting to think about what runs beneath our feet. The embankment was developed to solve a number of issues for London, the main one being sewerage. Bazalgette's sewer, which runs alongside the District Line, took waste that would have been dumped in the river and whisked it away to the outskirts of London, helping to reduce the pollution in the city that caused many issues. Now we walk through a lovely, leafy park where many bench dwellers are unaware of what lies beneath their feet. If you choose to sit along here, you may feel the rumblings of the trains underneath, but it definitely smells a lot nicer than it probably did back before the sewer was built. There are many other points of interest in this park, but if we stop to look at them all, then we would be here all day. One that always catches my eye is the memorial to Arthur Sullivan, the acclaimed composer of Gilbert and Sullivan fame. The sculpture of a grieving woman really takes the spotlight. We've now reached the end of the gardens and we're going to head out to walk along the embankment. Our sightline here is dominated by Waterloo Bridge, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. Building began in 1937 and was continued through the war, with the opening in 1942, but not actually fully completed until 1945. It was nicknamed the Ladies' Bridge, as many women were part of the workforce to construct it during the war. It's now Grade 2 star listed. On the other side of the bridge, we come to Somerset House, and this facade would have also previously had the river lapping at its stones. Building on this site began in 1547, and it passed through various royal hands to become the building it is today. The original house was expanded by a familiar architect, Inigo Jones, but this was all demolished in the 1770s, with the new building designed by William Chambers. This embankment side was completed in 1786. And here we can see the gate which boats would have arrived at from the river before the embankment was built. Somerset House was home to the Stamp Office from 1789, which later became Inland Revenue, and that was here for over 150 years. Because of this, and also the General Register Office for births, deaths and marriages being established and housed here until 1970, many people still associate the building with their taxes or birth certificates. It now houses the Courtauld Institute of Art and Gallery and hosts other cultural events and exhibitions in the wings. We're now getting closer to the next station, with the train still running underneath our feet, but there is still so much more to see. As we cross traffic to this island, we can see a memorial to the engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, known for his innovations in steamships and the building of the Great Western Railway, which is nowhere near here. We will see him again in another episode of the series, so it's goodbye for now. Turning up Temple Place, there's more to explore before we head down into the station. Briefly admiring the historic cab shelter, we will follow these steps up onto the roof of Temple Station. Here there is the Artist's Garden, a changing display of artworks, free for the public to visit. You can also peek some views over the river through the leafy trees in the summer, but there are clearer views in the winter. Many people walk past and miss this, so make sure to come up and check it out. You can also see the ventilation shafts, and you may glimpse a train below, and this shows you just how shallow the trains run along here. They are true to their name, they are subsurface. The pigeons here were particularly enjoying this artwork/fountain. And there's the roundel we're looking for, marking the entrance to Temple Station. Before heading inside, I'd recommend spotting the historic map just by the entrance. And over on the corner is a nice historic sign with the Underground logo. I can't help but show you as many things as possible, so before we head into the station, let's walk just a little bit further and I promise you it's worth it. Just beyond the gardens, there are two dragon statues made of cast iron that mark the boundary to the City of London. The pair of 7-foot statues here seem to be on quite a grand scale, and that is because they were made to sit atop the old Coal Exchange building, which was built in 1849, but they were relocated here after it was demolished in the 1960s. So let's go back and get on the train, which will carry us over or under this boundary line into the City of London. The current building for Temple Station was designed by Harry Ford in 1915, but it was originally opened in the 1870 as the Temple. It is named after the Temple area and church nearby. It was also constructed as part of the Victoria Embankment. It is a very quiet station as it has no interchange with other lines, and it used to be closed on Sundays until 2005. I like this station, especially for its decorated columns and more peaceful experience. We're quite lucky as the train we want to get is just arriving as we get down to the platform. So let's continue to follow our thread underground and we will ride just one stop to Blackfriars Station. Blackfriars Station also opened at the same time as Temple in 1870, but its modern look comes from a more recent rebuild. This station was originally named St Paul's, but was renamed in 1937 when the Central Line station of Post Office was renamed St Paul's. Just a little confusing. The station was closed in 2009 and reopened in 2012 as it was rebuilt along with the Thameslink station which spans Blackfriars Bridge. Right in front of you when leaving the station is the impressive Unilever House, a neoclassical building designed by James Lomax Simpson in 1933. We're turning around to follow the path of the District Line along Queen Victoria Street. Across the road here is the Blackfriar Pub, named for the Blackfriars Priory of Dominican Friars, which was based in the area as far back as 1276. The pub dates to 1875 and has an impressive exterior and interiors. It was a little early for a pint on this walk, but I'd recommend you go inside for a peek if you can. As we continue under the Thameslink rail bridge, I encourage you to turn back and notice a little friend hiding in plain sight. This is an artwork by the street artist Invader, and these mosaics can be found all over London. As soon as you spot one, you start seeing them everywhere. So let's continue along Queen Victoria Street. If you are interested in churches, there are a few along here, including St Andrew by the Wardrobe, one of the 51 churches designed by Christopher Wren to be rebuilt following the Great Fire of London in 1666. Just a little further along we see St Bennet, Paul's Wharf, another Wren church and one of only 4 to survive the bombing of the Blitz in the City of London. Many of the Wren churches were rebuilt following the war, but as we will come to find on this walk, not all of them. On the left here we have the College of Arms, which is where you may officially register coats of arms. Its history goes back to when heralds would announce knights participating in medieval tournaments. The heralds then became responsible for recording the coats of arms. They have been based on this site since 1555. The previous building was burned down in the Great Fire, and this building dates from the 1670s. The gates are a later addition, as you can see, from 1956. On the day I filmed this walk, there was some other filming going on. You will often stumble upon various film or TV productions around London. It's basically one big movie set. Here I want to pause and take in the vista, as you get the great sightline of St Paul's Cathedral down to the Millennium Bridge and Tate Modern. Here's another church, and this one contains a coffee shop called Wren Coffee, if you're looking for a break and want to have a peek inside the St Nicholas Cole Abbey. This was one of the first Wren churches to be rebuilt after the Blitz, and this plaque outside tells us it sits within the ward of Bread Street, an area which used to house the city's bread market. Here we can see an old police post, not big enough for Doctor Who though. These posts were designed by Gilbert Mackenzie Trench in 1958, and a few can still be found around the city. These were designed to be smaller and less obstructive than the big police boxes in the narrow city streets. We're going to cross the road here for one more stop before we get to Mansion House Station. Hidden here is Cleary Garden, formed within the remains of a bombed-out building from the Blitz, with 3 tiers including exposed cellars of the building turned into a peaceful garden. It is named after Fred Cleary CBE, who was instrumental in the post-war development of gardens and green spaces in the city. The plaque dedicated to him here reads, "Tireless in his wish to increase open space in the city." I think it's kind of fitting that the plaque is covered by plants. Now we finally arrive at Mansion House Station, but before we go inside, there is something I want to show you. Just around the corner, we can look down and actually see the next station, Cannon Street, in that glass building just at the end of the road. You could walk it very easily, but I'm still going to follow our thread underground. I won't say much about the building above Mansion House, as it was redeveloped in 1989, and I don't love it. The station itself was first opened in 1871, and it's not actually the closest station to Mansion House itself. That would be Bank Station. The platforms used to be open to the air, but that has since been covered over. There was a Charles Holden entrance to the station built in the 1920s, but as we saw, it is sadly long gone. There was a third platform in the station, and you can see the old buffers here. The curve of the station gives us an interesting perspective to see the trains running through the tunnels. It is a very quick journey to Cannon Street, and you've already seen why. On the eastbound platform here, there is a relic of the not too distant past, a defunct phone booth bubble. Cannon Street Station was opened in 1884, under the mainline station above, which had been built 18 years prior. The underground station used to only be open for limited hours, as it mostly serves the offices in the area. This limitation was removed in 2014, and now you can enjoy it peacefully on the weekends. On exiting the station, you can look up the street and see where we were standing only moments ago. The underground station was reconstructed along with the mainline station in 2012. Heading around the corner onto Cannon Street itself, we can explore a mix of very old and very new. Down a very unassuming side street, you can find another of the city's hidden green spaces in Salters Hall Court. St. Swithin London Stone was a church on this site. As with many others, it was destroyed in the Great Fire, rebuilt by Wren, and destroyed again in the Blitz. It was decided not to rebuild this church, so the remains were demolished in the early 1960s. The London Stone was moved onto Cannon Street, and the churchyard retained as a public garden. There are a few nice spaces here to sit and enjoy the greenery. There is also a memorial here to the suffering of all women and children in war. Now let's go and find the mysterious London stone. This stone may be of Roman origin, but its original purpose or date are unknown. It appears on maps from the 1550s and became a well-known landmark in the Middle Ages. It has moved multiple times, even being noted as being hit by carts when it stood in the middle of the street in the 16th century. Anyway, here it is, if you want to see it. It doesn't really do much. We're going to keep following Cannon Street until we get to Monument Station. As we get to the junction with King William Street, we can see the historic underpasses to the station, but we're going to stay at street level a little bit longer. Down there is London Bridge, but we're going to go just around this building and turn left. Here we can see the monument, commemorating the Great Fire of London, which we have already talked so much about. The monument is 61.5 metres tall, and you can climb 311 steps to the top. It features a fluted Doric column of Portland stone with a gilded urn of fire on top. Built between 1671 and 77, it was designed by Robert Hooke, who was a celebrated polymath and scientist, and he also worked with Christopher Wren. It functions as a monument and also as a scientific instrument, with uses as a zenith telescope, and also was used to conduct an experiment on gravity using a pendulum. The bas-relief on this side is by Danish sculptor Caius Gabriel Cibber, and presents allegorical form of the destruction and restoration of the City of London following the fire. Now let's go into Monument Station, which is just behind us. This station was originally opened in 1884 under the name Eastcheap, but it was renamed to Monument less than a month later. The current building above was redeveloped between 1988 and 98 and is now Equitable House. The historic underpasses which we walked by is all that remains of the earlier entrances. The decoration on the monument platforms calls back to our dragons from earlier, with two either side of the roundel on the walls here. The decorative details of this station call back to the Bank of England, which is located nearby. So we're going to jump onto the train for the final time for this walk and head to Tower Hill Station. Tower Hill Station opened in 1884, but it's currently located on the site of a failed Metropolitan line station. It first opened slightly to the west as Mark Lane and was rebuilt in 1911 on that site. In 1946, it was renamed to Tower Hill and was moved to the current location in 1967. We will see where that original station was when we get to the surface. The exit leads us nicely into Trinity Square Gardens. First developed in 1796 and restored in 2003, these gardens house many memorials, including those to the people executed at the nearby Tower of London, and memorials for the merchant seamen who died in the World Wars. If we exit the garden and cross the road, we will see our old friend, the City of London Dragon boundary marker. So I hope that gives you a sense of how small the City of London is as we've just crossed the whole thing. Also here, looking across the street, we can see the original location of Mark Lane or Tower Hill Station. So we're going to end our walk down by the Tower of London. You can choose to pay £35 to go inside, but you get a good view of this World Heritage Site from outside for free. Founded in 1066, so much important British history has taken place here at the Tower of London. as we're reaching the end of the walk, I won't go into detail, but if you are interested in finding out more, there is so much resource out there in books and online. We're going to head down towards the entrance, but we're going to end the walk down on the wharf, which is free to access during opening hours. I would recommend checking the Tower of London website to see when the wharf is closed, as it can be for some periods of time for maintenance or for special events. Before we head there, I'll quickly show you an alternate walk ending if it does happen to be closed. If you find the gate closed, turn to the right and follow the path down to Sugar Quay Walk. There is a jetty here that you can step out onto and get a great view of Tower Bridge and the river. On a day when the wharf is open, just follow the cobbled street around the corner. That's where the paid visitors get herded inside, but we are free to walk along the street here and enjoy the views of Tower Bridge and the Tower of London. There can also be things to see outside the tower for free, like this poppies installation at Traitor's Gate. Our final point of interest on this walk is the iconic Tower Bridge, designed by Horace Jones and built between 1886 and 1894. It's a lot younger than it looks. There are lots of benches if you want to sit down and relax after your walk. I would recommend the ones closer to the bridge for a bit more quiet. This is a great spot to just enjoy watching the river traffic, looking up and down the river at some of the iconic buildings, and just relaxing after the walk. So thank you so much for joining me on this walk today. I hope you found it interesting and maybe even inspired to follow the route yourself. A reminder that you can access the detailed map of this walking route by supporting me on Ko-fi, which I will have linked down below. Let me know in the comments what your favourite part of the walk was, and please do consider subscribing so that you are notified when I share the next walks in the series. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.